Item 10, healthy homes. This is why it was important that we put this one straight after this one, the residential tenancy. So I'll Sophie, you can introduce yourself and Adrian, and I'll move the recommendation for discussion. Second, healthy homes, Councillor Clow. Or yours, Sophie.
Kia ora koutou, ko Sophie Hayway Tokuinga, and I'd like to introduce Adrian Feasy, who's a home performance specialist in my team. Really nice follow on from the previous presentation. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, which has been newly created out of MB, is consulting on the proposed healthy home standards for rental properties, and in your agenda you'll find the consultation document and our draft response. So what the standards are asking us, so they're asking us for feedback on 5 standards, and there's 2 other questions. The standards are on heating, and they include questions such as what minimum achievable indoor temperature should heating devices be sized for in rental homes, and where should heating be located. Insulation, including what is an appropriate level of insulation for rental homes and how should the condition of insulation be assessed. Ventilation, including what is the appropriate level of ventilation to ensure rental homes have adequate airflow in areas of high moisture. Moisture ingress and drainage, including are existing laws for rental homes sufficient to protect against moisture and inadequate drainage, or could regulations better protect against moisture entering the home. And draft stopping, including what appropriate measures should landlords take to stop drafts in a rental home. So the attachment in your agenda outlines our specific response to each of those proposals. However, overall, Council is proposing the highest of the standards that are being consulted on. There are much higher standards, such as 6-star green building standards that all new Panuku developments will be built to. So the question might be, why are we recommending the highest standards proposed? But these are by no means the highest standards that exist. And we'll have a clicker. If there's any question why we are proposing these levels, then this family is a good example. Dawn Robbie lives at this Papakura home with her partner Cameron and her 2 daughters, a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old, and they pay $520 a week.
Oh my goodness.
The house has an incorrectly connected stormwater system and blocked drains, resulting in an ankle-deep swamp underneath the house and an unusable flooded yard when it rains. It has been like that for at least 21 months since they moved in. Dawn's daughter got bronchitis at 10 months old, and Dawn herself contracted strep throat. Her landlord has laughed at her when she has requested repairs to the drainage under the property. Housing Minister Phil Twyford has himself used this as an example of why things need to be changed. And Dawn is not alone. Each year 1,600 people die from excess winter mortality, which is partly attributable to New Zealand's low indoor temperatures, and 10,800 children with potentially housing quality related health issues present to New Zealand hospitals each year. Housing is one of the key modifiable determinants of health, and inadequate, poor quality housing can have far-reaching impacts on health outcomes. People who live in unhealthy homes are at increased risk of contracting serious and avoidable illness such as meningitis and rheumatic fever. If these standards are chosen, the 38.5% of Aucklanders who live in rental properties will have the right to warmer, drier and more energy efficient homes. So the other 2 questions that we've asked to respond on are around timing and implementation of the standards. So when and how should healthy homes standards be implemented, and when and how should the standards be enforced? The submission notes the requirement for effective enforcement of the standards to achieve the desired outcomes, and we request that we be included in discussions with Ministry relating to how the standards be implemented, including through enforcement, education and incentivisation programs. The draft submission also recommends that landlords should be required to make these upgrades either at the start of a new tenancy, or if the tenancy is not renewed in the next 4 years, by a specific end date of 2022, not the proposed 2024. This will give landlords 4 years to meet the standards while ensuring tenants experience health benefits sooner. So the due date for submissions to Ministry is 22 October. Local boards have been provided the consultation documents also, and any provided to us by the state, which I believe there are 6, will be attached verbatim to our submission. And that's all from me. Over to you, any questions?
Thank you both. Any comments to make? No? Okay, I'm going to open up to questions. And I mean, as what's happened with the previous agendas, you can make comments as well.
Okay,
Simpson.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it brief and do a bit of both. I'll start with a comment actually, and if one decision I could make in this term that makes a difference, I think this one would be one of them. That article it makes me just feel ill, that it's actually possible for people, you know, to pay over $500 a week to live like that. It's just so wrong. So I'm very happy to support this. I think there's a line though between that and the tweaking that is with homes that are kind of reasonable too, and you know, they're maybe older homes and now they have a window, that's all they've had. Now you're adding potentially extractor fans and other, you know, not all stoves have things over them to clear the cooking, and now we're adding that. So I think the period of time to do, I mean, that for me is a lot less than some of the major stuff that we're doing here. My question though is around the Great Barrier local board feedback. Did you read that one? That was a tricky one for me, because of course they talk about the fact that their homes are all heated by fireplaces, and I just wondered how I know that we're trying to sort of put one standard across Auckland, and I think it's really good, but it was very interesting that their rental and their way of life on the island was potentially a little bit different, and by putting these standards over on the island, do we feel comfortable that is actually in line with the way people live on the island and how they, sort of the community and the ethos of living on Great Barrier as opposed to, you know, in other parts of Auckland? I don't know that I'm getting my message across quite well, but
Yeah, that's right.
you know, they are a bit of a different
Unique.
in community.
Adrian.
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, so in island-based communities like that, they are much more energy conscious.
Across the board as well.
To use diesel or other forms of energy for heating is usually much more expensive. And so wood burners are one of the primary heating sources. The standard does allow for wood burners to be the primary heating source in the living room. So from that point of view, what we've recommended is consistent with the way the bulk of homes are heated in Great Barrier. The requirement for heating in bedrooms, which we've also advocated for in terms of a portable solution, would ultimately leave it to the tenant to decide whether they would use that heating device, and the tenant is usually the person responsible for meeting the energy costs. So it would still, I think in those environments, that the tenant would be making a decision about using the device based on their energy source. If they're using solar power, for example, they would bear that cost.
Okay, and my second question is the same question I asked last time, and that is, are these standards the same as Housing New Zealand standards? So are we going to have all tenants, all rental properties with the same kind of standards? We're not going to have a private landlord that rents out a home with a higher standard than perhaps Housing New Zealand, or vice versa? Is it consistent? Is it consistent across the board?
Housing New Zealand's included in those standards. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
Casillas, Cooper, and then Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Three brief questions. One was just trying to clarify. It's really picking up on a statement you made earlier, and Councillor Simpson's comment there about the standards, specifically the 6-star. So 6-star to do with the Kiwi Build initiative versus Councillor Simpson's question. So I'm just trying to understand. I think what I heard you say is 6 stars, a higher level than what's been recommended. So who's in that 6-star bracket, and is there a significant difference?
Yeah, so the 6-star I referred to was a New Zealand Green Building Council standard for new builds. So Panuku, it was just an example, Panuku is building all its new housing developments to that standard. So that's considered to be the Rolls-Royce standard at this point in time. I think you can go up to 10-star in some countries.
Can go up to 10. The average New Zealand home currently is about a 2.5 to 3.
Right.
So that was just an example of we're saying while we're proposing the higher standards that the ministry are proposing, it's by far not the highest standard you can get to.
Okay, no, thank you very much. That was very helpful. Thank you for that answer. Second question, Mr. Chair, was just to do with just clarification. I think I've got this correct, that the Healthy Home Standard, part of that includes this warrant of fitness certification. That's part of the gig.
Part of the proposal?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so we have put forward a recommendation that there is a form of a rating system by which the standard can be measured. That would make it easier to communicate to landlords and tenants what's involved in meeting the standard.
Yep, okay, very good. Thank you very much. And the third one was just around the costs, where there was an estimate there could cost landlords $11,000 or $12,000 is a figure that's mentioned in the report. And with some landlords, that's in terms of the margins they might be making, it's going to take them a while to recover that investment, right? But my question's probably more around the percentage of landlords that we're talking about that would have to spend that type of money. You know, are we talking about 50% of the rental stock out there, or do we have any idea of what percentage of landlords might have to spend that type of money?
Yeah, I think that's a worst case estimate, and a very small percentage would be up for that. Most houses would be, you know,
$200.
a fraction of that. We don't have those. We don't have any assessment of how many. Yeah.
I know, look, your answer's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, just to so that's if each of the standards had to be applied to a house, the cost to meet that standard in Auckland would be approximately $11,000 to $12,000. But given the housing stock in Auckland, you wouldn't expect a high proportion to be in that situation.
Okay. Thank you for your answers, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Cool. Councillor Cooper and then Watson, and then
Thank you.
hopefully put the recommendation.
My question was around 1.4, around the option of fixed or portable heating devices. I just want to understand why you opted for the one with portable, just because there's two issues. One is, you know, sometimes they, you know, if you're saying in the early one, living room and bedrooms, and then people are moving them to other places where we haven't said they should be for bedrooms, etc. So there's that one, but also, and some people won't like this, but I have seen when people leave rental properties, they go right down to the light bulbs, the curtains, everything is gone, often stripped out of a house. And so that would just mean an owner having to keep replacing the portable devices. But also portable devices that you can buy are things like those horrible gas heaters, which are very bad. They're cheap to buy, you can get them at the warehouse, and if a landlord can buy those, they are very damp and terrible, plus dangerous. So I just wonder why you said that, because we know that a fixed heating would be much better.
Yeah, so any items left by a landlord in a house get listed as chattels on the tenancy agreement. So if a tenant took those, then they would be liable in their bond.
No, I'm talking about if you but we know you can never recover that. I don't know if you've ever been through the tenancy tribunal as a landlord. You will never recover that. It'll cost you more going along to do it, so you just give up.
Recoverable from the bond, I mean.
Yeah, but what happens is people just don't pay their rent for the last 2 weeks, and then the bond's gone. So that's the reality of having private rentals. So what I'm saying is more to the point is about the fixed heating devices are more effective anyway. You know, like heat pumps or those panels, they're actually more effective, and you get a better result than saying, oh, well, I can just buy one of those ones. So that's why I'm actually kind of on your side saying let's not give an out by just providing some cheap and nasty kind of heater that might not be effective.
Yep, through the chair. So we have made a recommendation to look at whole of house central heating systems as an approved form of heating as well. And we have also made a recommendation that for the non-fixed heating appliances, that some guidance is given around the type of system. For example, fixed panel heaters that have a thermostat control and a timer. So that would go some way to addressing having heating in bedrooms, which is the main goal, but do it in a way that it's not easy to remove.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is then you're supporting portable. That's what I'm not understanding. You're supporting portable heating devices, but you're answering me with fixed solutions. So that's what why are we supporting movable, your support, in the response, council supports option 2, with a caveat about fixed. So I don't understand why we're supporting at option 2. You know, I don't feel like I can hear the answer.
What are the other options we're given, Sophie?
It was fixed heating only or fixed and portable, and we're supporting fixed and portable, where we know portable isn't very good for both tenant and landlord.
We've looked at.
Or am I reading that wrong? Sorry. Is there another piece?
Yeah, no, I can see
Yep.
yeah.
So
You can't make landlords only.
with the portable heaters, we install, I think, replicating those because we want a heating solution in the bedrooms.
Yeah, because who's going to be the heater police anyway?
And who's going to put?
Who's going to check if you bought a suitable portable heating device? Who's going to come and check you? They're not. So I just think you give too much leeway, that's all.
what do you
To be considered whoever's signing
So in
off.
regards to, just to sort of get some stuff, in regards to the options, and there are only 2?
Yep.
So maybe that's a decision that we could make here in regards to which options we would rather support than, so I'm assuming, Councillor Cooper, that you're saying that let's support the ones with fixed only. If we do, what are the repercussions, or not
yeah.
repercussions, but if that's the case, that's our position, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I suppose, just if I speak to that, I'm actually supporting, if you look at landlords and tenants in this, one is for the landlord, it's a one-off cost, it's done, yes, it might take a little bit while, but then it can't be taken out. It doesn't have to be replaced every time a tenancy changes if it's taken. And from the landlord, from the tenant's point of view, it's usually a much more effective form of heating. You know, and so I just think that it's a better balance, that's all.
So Sophie, if that actually happened with this committee, there'd be no issue with that, because
we'd support that.
obviously we'll end up coming through. So
I'd be
if
open
that's
to
the
what
change,
people
I
think.
want to then get some comments from the committee, and if we change it, we change it.
Yep, that's fine.
So if there's any comments around getting that changed, that it then we go for the option where it's fixed.
I'm not sure
So
about that.
that's why I put the
That's
option in.
fine.
So
I'm not sure about that. Can I-
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of see your point, and I know, that was, when I read it, I thought, oh, look, the people just nick the heaters, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sure that potentially we're saying every home in Auckland has to have fixed heaters in every bedroom. I'm not sure that's a good thing to say. So, I'm sorry, councillor,
No, that's
but
right.
I do,
Fine, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
So
it doesn't have to
yeah,
be.
but I think it was easier than
You?
sort of going back to Sophie and Adrian and sort of saying, hey, look what we do, because they're in a position, so it was better for me to put that to us as a committee. And I mean, look, at the moment, if there's no others that we'll stay with the submission,
I just
and
want to put my
then we
view
can sort
forward.
of go through from there, because it seems that,
I do get your point that there'll be nicked, that's my first thought.
Yeah.
But
No, it's
Happy with
fine.
it? Okay
I'll
then,
put my view forward.
yeah,
We'll
cool.
see how it plays out.
Yeah, definitely, because look, I guarantee that later on we'll end up sort of
Mr.
getting
Chairman,
something
I
back.
suppose, just one more comment. As long
Yep.
as the council aren't the heater checking police to see that every time a new tenancy, there is a new portable heater being purchased and put in there.
Okay, so look, Sophie, we'll stay with our submission
Yes,
as it's written.
so Adrian's just pointed out to me that panel heaters weren't actually listed as a fixed device. It was more around wood burners and gas fluid heaters, which is why we said that it should be
Okay,
not just fixed.
okay. Well,
We
you got
can't
the
get those
mid of
anywhere.
this. Councillor Watson, and then hopefully then we'll
Yeah.
put the recommendation.
Just a question on the cost that has been quoted here, $11,000 to $12,000. That of course wouldn't take any account of any ancillary work that might go to, perhaps I'm thinking particularly of bathrooms, of taking away mould or replacing jib or stuff like that. And I say that because in the current market, there's huge waiting time and costs for pretty basic work seems to have just gone, ridiculous. Do those costs kind of take account of actually what's happening out in that marketplace?
No, the repairs haven't been quoted in that figure.
No.
That's the cost of the appliances and work done, including labour, to meet standard.
So conceivably, there could be repair costs to
Old and damp.
Yeah, to go on top of it. Okay, great. The other one just goes to that point 44 to do with the who's going to bear the funding burden of any enforcements. And I know you did say that it didn't seem to be that many homes, but it would be quite a big significant number of. It would be a fairly substantial cost in enforcement, wouldn't it? And one I would suggest that would be out of the council's league, really, unless we were getting some funding arrangement with government.
Yeah, I think the small proportion we talked about was the worst case scenario, but there would be an awful lot of houses that needed retrofit, probably including my own. So the enforcement question, I think, was well answered by Katarana's team, but yes, we believe that there would need to be a major cost recovery from any enforcement role that we would take. Yeah, that's a future step.
Okay. So there's no further questions or comments. Just to let everybody know that the local board feedback has been tabled and it'll be, Sophie, I'm assuming, be attached to our submission.
Yep.
Yeah, cool bananas. Okay then, I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time check, just to let everybody know, it's 12 minutes past 11. And John, go to item